Today, I'm going to be talking about him. Yes, that's right, you know the guy. I've talked about him before on my channel. His name is Verlisify, and much to my and many other people's dismay, he does undeniably have huge pull in the Pokemon community. And because of that huge pull, it's actually very important that we talk about him and call him out on what exactly he does. And essentially what he does is make himself be a contrarian for the sake of clicks at the expense of others and their enjoyment and the future of the Pokemon series. So as we all know, Pokemon Legends Arceus released recently, and fans and critics alike have been raving about it. It's the game we've wanted for a long time, or at the very least, the framework for a game that we've wanted for a long time out of the Pokemon franchise. So Verlisify is doing his whole different take on things, essentially, which is just like he did with Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee and Sword and Shield, where he said those games were great while everyone else said they were bad. Now he's saying Pokemon Legends Arceus is the worst game ever, while everyone else says they're the best Pokemon games ever. I mean, the literal title of his video says Pokemon Legends is the worst game ever. So we're going to be reviewing his review of Pokemon Legends Arceus. It's quite the wacko review, so we're gonna have a lot of fun with this, just taking apart the different things that he has said throughout the video and, just putting our own logic into it, because I think we really need to do that here, because Verlisify is very much illogical. On purpose. I believe it's on purpose. I don't think he actually feels these things. I mean, if you look at his page, he actually puts up guides for the game and big whoop-de-doo title for this event in the game or this mechanic in the game, but then goes on and makes reviews like these that completely make it seem like he's not having fun when he obviously is having fun and making content with the game. So let's go ahead and get started. We're going to be watching Verlisify's review, starting from the beginning.
I don't understand why people are getting so mad at me over Pokemon Legends while I'm just trying to save them money.
If I, or any other PokeTuber, or YouTuber for that matter, started our review of the game with that, I can't even begin to tell you how many views we would not get. I don't know how. I mean, I should probably preface this. Verlisify has a lot of viewership on his channel, and he has a lot of subscribers. The man has almost 500,000, I think, something like that, almost 500,000 subscribers. To put in perspective, I don't even have 6,000 subscribers yet. And he not only is the quality of his videos supremely low, but he also he has this weird formatting for his videos that is so trashy. And for some reason, people still eat this up. I can't begin to understand it. Oh, he has comments turned off. You guys can kind of see this here. He has comments turned off. I'm big surprised. So, of course, nobody can speak out against this. So all you see is the likes and the viewership. 409,000 views. Oh my goodness. Okay. After that brilliant opening statement, let's see what else he has to say.
Pokemon Legends is such a bad game that it's actually negative value. Your time is better spent doing anything else. Picking up an extra shift at work, cleaning the neighbor's gutter, because maybe something interesting will happen. So Pokemon Legends is like negative $80 in value.
Negative $80. The game is $60. Meanwhile, Sword and Shield, which was something a lot of people said was not worth the money, was $90 if you count the DLC. So that argument is pretty much invalid from the get-go. But, let's continue.
So if you hate yourself and you hate money, fine, go ahead and buy it. I can't do anything to stop you, which is also why it's even weirder that people get so upset that I'm calling this bad game a bad game.
Okay, so another thing that he really likes to do is paint himself as someone who speaks truth and is persecuted for such a thing. I've compared him to politicians before, and propagandists, and it's very, very much the same tactics. It's obviously not as important or as meaningful to the world here, because this is a video game, and really what we're trying to do is speak out about what we want the video game franchise to be. And that's more of like an entertainment thing, not really a world health thing. But it's just so funny to me that he acts like he's persecuted for having these beliefs, so-called beliefs, that I promise you he doesn't actually have. But like just like as propaganda for trying to spread hate around this game, which honestly, I'm not sure if that's helping or hurting it, because the game sold more than Sword and Shield and BDSP in its first week by 0.5 million. So, I mean, maybe he's out here doing the good work. I don't know, but for sure he's backwards in his opinions and what he's saying, and he's just trying to play victim beyond that. So let's once again continue on with this. Oh my gosh, this crapshoot.
Now, my biggest problem with doing a review on Pokemon Legends is that all of my concerns about the game ended up being validated, and it's worse than I could have ever imagined. So it's going to be a lot of repeating myself. Like, if you just watch my video, Pokemon Legends is going to be bad.
Okay, there's actually nothing new with that. He's actually well known for repeating himself, so I don't get why he feels the need to preface that in this particular video. but okay, Verlisify, let's keep going.
Here's why, where I just read the website and watched official trailers, and then people got mad at me for doing that. It's that, but worse. Like, you almost need to experience it to understand how truly bad it is. So I guess the best...
Okay, wait, we're how long into this video? Over a minute into this video. And this is supposed to be a review. But so far, it's just been him complaining that people are complaining about his opinions. Again, if I or any other YouTuber did this, our viewership would be so low. How does this guy get views? You know how hard I work for my videos? You know how much work I put into my analysis? And I struggle to make 1,000 views sometimes. Like, this is insane to me. This guy has over 400,000 views on this video. I've never surpassed 100,000 views on a video. Now, at least not at this point. That's so crazy to me. All right, let's continue.
The best way I can do a review is just talking about my experience playing through the game as is. So the very beginning of the game is stupid and doesn't make any sense because Arceus just decides to send you back in time, and the Arc phone exists because your modern smartphone got transformed just because, and then Arceus just kind of like beams you text messages that walk you through the entire game just because. And don't worry.
You could really say just because for like any story ever, just to try to make it sound like nothing has a point. But like obviously all this had a point. Like the story is coherent, it makes sense, but
beating the game doesn't give you any more answers. So we're just kind of sent back in time because we needed an excuse to have a Pokemon Isekai, I guess. And it's a very...
No, they mentioned more than once in the story that there was a reason for us getting sent back in time, because they needed someone who understood and could bond with Pokemon to go back to this time where nobody did that. So it is explained. Literally, I just explained what the answer the game gave us was, and he's gonna sit here and say that it doesn't make sense. He probably didn't finish the game yet.
Very sloppily done one at that. So after that, you get your first tutorial on how to catch Pokemon because the 3 starter Pokemon escape. And then after
look how cute
God knows how long of a cutscene, you're told to catch 3 more Pokemon for the next part of the tutorial. So catching Oshawott, Cyndaquil, and Rowlet wasn't enough. Now you gotta catch Bidoof, Shinx, and Starly.
Okay, to his credit, this is accurate. The opening of the game is definitely one of the weakest parts of the game. And sure, he gets to, have his moment to shine with this part of his propaganda for making Pokemon great again, or whatever his slogan is. But yeah, that is true. The opening of the game has its flaws. And at least we can admit that, right? We can admit that. But it's the rest of what he has to say that's an issue. Let's keep going.
And then we do that, you go back. If you thought the open exploration Pokemon game was going to let you take more than 5 steps without being interrupted, you were wrong.
But you never complained about this before. Honestly, this is no slower of an opening than Sword and Shield or BDSP were. No slower. Okay, maybe not BDS. Well, yeah, BDSP too. And Let's Go. That's the game I was thinking of. No slower than that. And Let's Go in general was a slog, like from start to finish, not even just with the opening cutscene. And Sword and Shield too. Like they constantly stop you in Sword and Shield. At least in this game, that first hour and a half, yeah, sure, awfully slow. But after that, you're released. You are free. There's some cutscenes from then on, but they're treats at that point. Like the cutscenes are treats after the first hour and a half. Everything beyond that is so good, and there's so much freedom. You can do things in whatever order you... I know people who stayed in the first area of Pokemon Legends Arceus for their first 40 hours plus. Some people told me more. Some people told me like 60 hours. They did not even leave the first area yet. They haven't even like gone back to the professor to analyze their Pokedex entries. Like there's so much freedom with this game and so much to do that you can just keep playing all you want. So I don't get how he's going to complain about this, but not acknowledge those flaws with past games and never acknowledge them in the past. Let's continue.
So this is not an innovation. This is not a step forward for Game Freak because it's the worst Pokemon game for getting interrupted with cutscenes and being on a handholdy rail. And if the game that looked like it was going to be open world and also has like your trainer get knocked out from taking Pokemon attacks doesn't let you have any freedom, then there's really no hope.
So you want to talk about no hope, but you want things to continue the way they used to be. The thing is with this is he's saying that it's really handholdy, which is completely untrue. This is the least handholdy mainline Pokemon game we've ever had, actually, because like I mentioned, you can just do so much gameplay. And then on top of that, as you continue through the story after that first hour and a half, they don't stop you anymore for tutorials. The only things you get are cutscenes with story beats, and like they're good story beats, and then like some good cutscenes, and nothing else. Like if you go into a boss fight, only if you lose that boss fight does the loading screen give you a hint on how you can maybe overcome the boss fight. That's it. Like it's seamlessly woven into it. It doesn't stop the action or anything. And the load screens are really fast too, mind you. The load screens do not take a long time. All right, once again, let's continue.
The first 3 hours of the game is effectively a cutscene tutorial, and since you get interrupted
Okay, so we talked about an hour and a half before. Now he's changing it to 3 hours. The first 3 hours of the game are a cutscene tutorial? No. First hour and a half max.
Every minute, you never really get into the flow of the game. Not like the actual gameplay is enjoyable. Pretty much every time I try to do something interesting or cool, the game said, nah, you can't throw a Pokeball that far. Nah, you weren't in that bush properly, so the Pokemon just spotted you, and then you're forced into a battle.
So essentially he's saying he's bad at the game. That's what I'm getting out of this, because the Pokeballs go very far, and the grass is very forgiving for hiding you. Also, like, can you really be mad about difficulty in a Pokemon game? Like, oh my goodness.
You can't do this, you can't do that. Oh, this Pokemon's actually skittish. Like, it's a very unpleasant.
Also, this cutscene that he's doing right now of him throwing it, I did the same thing. I wonder how many people did this, because I really thought we were supposed to sneak up on it, because they taught us how to sneak up on it right before this. But you just like throw your Pokemon out and it interacts with it. I think that's really funny.
Experience. Okay, I'm just throwing this in somewhere in the video because I've been working on it for a few hours. I'm getting tired. But I realized while editing this video that I have...
Grammarly can help you write quickly and confidently, so you never have to slow down.
I would take this out.
Stay on top of emails,
but that was too funny.
And more.
Understated how bad the cutscene interruptions are. It's just... 1 for 1. For every 1 minute of freedom you get, there's going to be a minute of dialogue and just interruptions coming your way.
He's saying this as like half of these interactions are NPCs he is going up to. He himself are going up to them. This right here is about to be a cutscene that's a story beat. Sure. But it's an interesting one at that, and it has a lot of exposition for Almighty Sinnoh and that whole feud, and I think it's very interesting.
That the first couple hours of the game are almost unplayable, and this doesn't get any better as the game goes on, because the story is just going to keep hammering itself in. Oh, this noble Pokemon needs help. Oh, this Pokemon needs to be caught. Oh, here's your research progress. Back to town.
He's mad that the game has a format, a structure, something to keep the player going, because that's all he said just now was like, oh, it doesn't get any better because then you have to do the things the game has for you to do with the reasoning the game has for you to do. He said he's mad about them hammering home the story, which, mind you, I think is a good story. So again, you can say these things for any game in any context and say them like they're bad things and sound convincing, but it's not true at all. That's the thing. I cannot believe 6.8 thousand people liked this video. I still cannot look at this. Oh, wait. Look at this. 6.8 thousand people, 409,000 views right here. That's insane to me. That is so insane. All right, we're going to continue.
And that's just kind of the thing. There's also so many more problems than I can state in this video that I've kind of touched on in the past, that or other things that should make themselves evident. Like, you go back to the town, and then you talk to the gatekeeper, and then you go to the area. Everything is clunky, and there's no freedom in this game at all. So that's another thing. It's like, okay, cool, we have the open exploration Pokemon game. Are you able to do like these cool setups like in Breath of the Wild to where you can effectively just play however you want? No, there's not.
Yes, there's plenty of freedom in how you want to play. You can choose to battle the Pokemon to catch them or to beat them and get that Pokedex entry for beating them. You can beat them with a super effective move. You can just try to get Pokemon to hop out of terrain, which is part of Pokedex entries. There's so many different ways to get Pokedex entries. And then also catching them. Like, do you want different size variations? Do you want a large Chimecho? Do you want a small Chimecho? Do you want an alpha? Do you want to go fight that alpha? Can you beat that alpha? Do you want to just beat that alpha to level up your team? Do you want to catch that alpha and use it on your team? What do you want to do? Like, there's so many things that you can do in this game. And I'm not even beginning to scratch on the surface of all the things that you can do. I'm just naming a few things that come to mind right away. He has no points to any of these. He says them as these huge generalizations, which is something he does a lot. He says huge generalizations as if they're true and then just tries to ride them home. That's all it is. All right, let's continue.
Not enough foundation to Pokemon Legends to give you any freedom to do anything interesting inside the game. If a Pokemon is just a mellow Pokemon, you walk up, you get within 3 inches of it, and then you give it a concussion by throwing a Pokeball at it. If the Pokemon is skittish, prepare to get a headache from when somehow the Pokemon spots you even though it's not looking at you, and then you can't even get like close enough to throw a Pokeball or even like lock on your targeting, so you're forced into a battle or you just get to watch it run away. And it's kind of the same thing for like the aggressive Pokemon. Like, if the Pokemon sees you, you're either forced into a battle or you have to like run away to reset the encounter from a weird angle, and then...
So again, it sounds like he's just miffed about the difficulty in the game. And now he's mad about Pokemon having different personalities when he wasn't mad about the like very few variations of those in Sword and Shield in that wild area. Because like Pokemon would run away from you in that too, and stuff, and like attack you and whatnot. Like, I don't get what his issues are. Some Pokemon would come up to you in Sword and Shield too and be like, hi stranger. Like, what do you want? I don't get what he wants.
Then maybe try to cheese a catch, but there's nothing dynamic about it. It's not like, oh, I need to adapt to do interesting things to catch this Pokemon. It's just very clunky. Also, yeah, the controls are clunky.
You do need to adapt. That's the whole point. You're obviously not adapting if you're complaining about these things. That means you never found any strategy to get them.
Everything feels like it's got a little bit of lag, like switching between your targeting and then throwing the Pokemon or throwing the Pokeball. It just doesn't feel natural. Or
he's mad about in an action game animations playing for movements. So in action games, I should probably talk about this because I play action games a lot. I'm a huge Bayonetta fan and Devil May Cry and all these sorts of action games. Legend of Zelda, I guess, technically counts. So the thing is, with movements and with fighting and with just like whatever kind of action it is, you want to make the animation satisfying and have weight to them to get a certain feel of play across. If everything was lightning fast, what do you think the game would be? Like, it would be way too easy. You couldn't have an animation for lifting your Pokeball. You couldn't have an animation for anything. Like, it would look like 1 frame for something. Is that what he wants? Is he wants lack of animations? Actually, you know what? That is what he wants. He likes Sword and Shield. He likes lack of animations. I think I've cracked the code. Obviously, I don't think he actually believes these things. But like, if he really did feel this way, then that would be it right there. Is he just doesn't like animations and doesn't like when something feels or looks good to play, which would be crazy. It would be absolutely bonkers if someone actually felt that way. And beyond that, this has got to be the smoothest Pokemon game I've ever played, at least mainline Pokemon game I've ever played. And honestly, maybe even not just mainline. It might be, for all of them, it might be the smoothest Pokemon game I've ever played, from the load times to everything. The menus are instantaneous. Like, the actions feel fluid and like they are realistic and they work. And he's saying that this feels clunky, but at the same time, he would never admit that Sword and Shield and Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee had the clunkiest menus, which the entire game is just menus, right? All you're doing in those games is pressing A. And yet somehow they messed that up too. And the menus take like a second to load up. Every time you press like the menu button, it takes like a full second for the menu to pop up. And like when you're in battles, sometimes it takes a full second when you press a button to go into the next menu for the battles to the attacks. And he's not going to call that clunky when all it is a UI, and they can't even code that properly in those games. Like, they actually coded properly in this game, and it actually boggled my mind how well this game was made. And he wants to sit here and call it clunky. I'm in disbelief. I'm in utter awe that he has the audacity to say these things, whether it's just being a propagandist or not. I can't in my right mind believe it. That it's so insane. And I remember just like specifically complaining about how clunky Let's Go and Sword and Shield felt, especially for being such low demand, low quality, low effort games that they are. Like, simple format. Turn-based battles should not be slow like that, but they were. And like, this is so much faster. It's almost as if they tried to speed everything up with this game. Battles are faster, menus are faster, there's action in it, and it's fast and fluid. I don't understand where his arguments can possibly come from.
It just doesn't feel natural or enjoyable, and that's...
He's saying it doesn't feel natural or enjoyable, but he's saying that he wants it to be like 1 frame for you to pick up the Pokeball and throw it. Like, he wants it to be instantaneous. That wouldn't be natural.
It's kind of it. Like, you just run, you see a Pokemon, you throw a Pokeball, and you hope for the best. Maybe something happens, maybe it doesn't. You do that for an hour, and you get an arbitrary amount of research points, and that's kind of it. I kind of enjoyed, like, just having my Pokemon just, like, throwing them at trees to get, like, apricorns, throwing them at rocks to get tumblestones, but it doesn't do anything. It doesn't mean anything. There's no...
It gets you materials. What do you mean it doesn't do anything? And it also gives your Pokemon experience. Look, it says right here, plus 15 experience. Hello?
No reward to any of this. Gathering the items is pointless. Oh man, we have crafting in Pokemon, but the crafting is pretty meaningless because, like, you burn through Pokeballs, and there's like overinflated health and stats.
So the crafting is meaningless because we burn through Pokeballs? That is why crafting has a meaning, is because you burn through Pokeballs. Because you burn through Pokeballs is why you have crafting. So that was the most backwards logic so far. Let's continue.
Stat values. So it seems like the game deliberately tried to take veteran Pokemon players out of their comfort zone by just destroying the entire system. Because instead of EVs and IVs, we have effort levels, and training those is just annoying anyways. Like,
no, okay, so training those is not annoying, mind you. This is way more streamlined than the bloated and overly convoluted system that was in previous Pokemon games for EVs and IVs. I never liked EVs and IVs, mind you. I found it tedious to perfect them. You have to do the whole breeding thing, you have to do the whole training thing, and like, it takes so long just to get a perfected team. In this game, if you want to, you can have any Pokemon you want and you can max out all their stats. So let's say you have a special bond with a certain Pokemon you caught because you had a certain experience catching that Pokemon in this game. You can make them the best version of that Pokemon that you have in your entire pasture. So, for instance, my Oshawott that I started with, what if I got that Oshawott in a past game and it didn't have perfect EVs and IVs, but I wanted it to be my best Pokemon because that was my starter. In this game, it can be my best Oshawott that I ever have. I can just max out its EVs. So, and he said that it's annoying to level up the EVs, but all you have to do is use grit, gravel, pebbles, rocks to do it. It's so much better. So much better. You can go to the farm and you can get mints and change their natures. So that's also way better. You get several mints at a time when you do that. And then you can get other things too. You can get apricorns from farming. You can get apricorns from breaking those rocks that we talked about and tumblestones. And he wants to say that like crafting is pointless and that there's no reward for breaking those stuff as you go along. But like literally you break those stuff so you can craft. Again, backwards logic. But as always, let's continue.
You catch Pokemon, you might notice that like a level of Pokemon has like more stats and more health than it does, and then the battling just doesn't make any sense. Because like the way that these numbers interact messes with the damage formula to where like you throw out a strong move and it does like a quarter of a Pokemon's health, and they just use a neutral non-stab move and it does like half of a Pokemon's health. And you're just sitting there like wondering like why. It feels like the game is just like the game doesn't make sense for artificial.
Wait, I didn't understand what he said just now. Maybe I missed something. I'm going to back that up a little bit.
You might notice that like a level of Pokemon has like more stats and more health than it does, and then the battling just doesn't make any sense. Because like
so just because they changed the stats of the Pokemon, you're saying that the game doesn't make sense. When honestly, this is more in line with other JRPGs. Like Final Fantasy has stats closer to these, rather than Pokemon with its lower stats that it usually has in past games. So like the stat numbers don't matter as long as the whole game is balanced around it, which it is, mind you. It very much is. And a lot of it's for the sake of difficulty, which a lot of us appreciate.
The way that these numbers interact messes with the damage formula to where like you throw out a strong move and it does like a quarter of a Pokemon's health, and they just use a neutral non-stab move and it does like half of a Pokemon's health.
What is a neutral non-stab move? What is it? What's a non-stab move? I think the neutral part is saying like not strong style or agile style, but he's saying a non-stab move? Maybe this is a competitive thing, I don't know. But regardless, I don't get what his complaint is here. If you do a strong style attack and it doesn't do a lot of damage, it's either because you're using a weak move or your Pokemon is lower level. So what is that argument? I really don't get it. I never had issues with the battles in this game. It was perfectly fine and difficult in all the right ways. And strategic. Way more strategic than usual. At least for a mainline story campaign.
And you're just sitting there like wondering like why. It feels like the game is just like the game doesn't make sense for artificial difficulty and to make you relearn Pokemon for no reason.
So he's mad because he spent his entire life learning all the stats of Pokemon prior to this game, which by the way do change from game to game even in the past. So now he's mad that he has to relearn all the Pokemon. Hold on, there was something else he said that really got me.
It doesn't make sense for artificial difficulty and to make you relearn Pokemon for no reason.
Artificial difficulty. What other kind of difficulty is there? You make the game difficult. Like the game is an artificial product. I don't get what he's talking about. Again. And also he keeps repeating himself saying that like the game doesn't make sense. The game doesn't make sense in this like huge general thing. And the worst part is if you say something enough, either to yourself or to others, eventually someone's going to believe it. And that really sucks that he has that down to a T here. I probably shouldn't have even said that on the stream because if he watches this video, he's just going to continue to do it even more. But there is a certain extent that if you say it too much, I guess it does start to make people really wonder if that actually is true. So I don't know. Maybe he's not juggling that line as well as I think.
Like, all of the intuitive decisions don't work, and then after experimenting for a bit, you just...
All of the intuitive decisions don't work. Make that line make sense. You just admitted that the systems are intuitive, but then you said they don't work. That's a contradictory statement. Intuitive and not working are two different things that kind of, or that definitely are opposites of each other. You can't say that an intuitive thing does not work.
All of the intuitive decisions don't work, and then after experimenting for a bit, you just realize the new battle system brings nothing to the game. The turn order doesn't make sense, and then most times like, oh, I just get to attack twice in a row, and then the Pokemon let its guard down anyways, and nothing happened. Like, no interesting interactions happened from the strong style or the agile style or the Pokemon being able to fight. Sometimes I get the jump on the Pokemon, it gets an unfair, like, first hit on me, and then I get KO'd, but it was a Badoo.
Again, he's complaining about difficulty. Like, I'm sorry, the game isn't like Pokemon Sword and Shield where you can just throw out your Pokemon with a special attack and beat them because it's super effective in one hit, and then like they'll throw out an attack and do very little damage to you if they even get the chance. I'm so sorry, Verlisify.
Anyway, so I bring in my normal Pokemon, use an agile style, and then my strongest attack, and I guess we just win the battle that way. The angry Pokemon feature seems unnecessarily restrictive, like
So he was complaining about it being hard, and now he's complaining that he wins the battle from using a strategy? I don't... Again, where's the logic?
Everything else in the game. I got this level 30 Pokemon down to very low health with my team of level 15s, and after throwing multiple Pokeballs at it, didn't catch it. And I wasn't able to like sneak up and throw a Pokeball anyways because the Pokemon like always has its guard up, so you can't do any kind of like interesting traversing around the map and then like just trying to set it up and plunk.
He's mad he can't catch a level 30 Parasect with a Pokeball? Dude, even in regular Pokemon games, you should know you need at least a Great Ball for that. You can't be mad that you can't catch this alpha level 30 Parasect with a Pokeball early game. The game, and your rank is lower, so like it's harder to catch Pokemon the lower your rank is. So he obviously is trying this when he's not even a 1-star member of the Survey Corps. Like, the higher you get the rank, the higher you get your Pokemon leveled, and the better balls you get, all of that counts towards making catching Pokemon easier. What, you really want this level 30 Pokemon early on in the game like that? Like, sure, there's a very small chance you can get it, but that's what would make it special, is if you took that small chance to get it. But you failed, and that's part of the beauty of the game, is that it's hard to get an over-leveled Pokemon like that, an overpowered Pokemon. Like, that's part of the fun. You guys saw my story with the Gyarados, right? Like, he wouldn't even obey me, but because I caught him super early. He was like level 55. So I had to like put him in the farm to do work, and then I got him back later when I was a high enough star member to have him obey me. Like, that is part of the beauty. That was one of my favorite stories to tell with this game. One of my favorite stories. And this guy's bagging on that. I can't believe it.
Pokeballs at until you catch it. Nah, you're forcing the battle. And even if you have the battle won, you don't get to earn that Pokemon catch. Also, why is the level 30 Pokemon battle with my level 15s easier than the evenly matched Munchlax battle? Again, the way like the move setups and the way in the game plays out just makes absolutely no sense. And it's just like, it's annoying and restrictive for no reason. It's like, oh, remember when strong Pokemon...
I don't get how it was easier for him. Both the ways he just kind of used one Pokemon and did it. So, actually, this one is killing him more, especially since he's trying to catch it.
Pokemon the wild area were kind of annoying when it's like, wait, I just beat this very high level Pokemon, and I'm just not allowed to catch it because the Pokemon has its guard up. And I can't like use that to snowball or get any kind of advantage. So really it's just an entire, like it's a waste. Like, it's just a waste of...
Hey, I'm Tom Holland.
And I'm Mark Wahlberg.
I mean,
Just
what
a
can you
waste of all
say
time,
about
Tom Holland.
Uncharted?
Yeah, it's a
Again, I
massive
would take this
globetrotting
out, but it's kind of
time
funny.
for no real rewards or no real benefit to your game. And why have that in the open area game? Why plunk in a level 40 Pokemon if...
Hold on. So he is the only person, I think, that I've ever heard complain that the Sword and Shield system was better, that you could not catch them because they had their guard up. But in this game, he's mad that there's a small chance to catch them. It's just very hard. The first person I've heard complain about this. The absolute first person. That's crazy. Let's continue.
If you can just completely ignore it, and then you're actually benefiting from it because you're not wasting your time. So the best move is to not engage with the game. Also, it's like, oh man, but multiple Pokemon can jump you. If multiple Pokemon are attacking your trainer, the game gets hard. Nah, just avoid stupid decisions. And then there's other restrictions.
Now you want to say avoid stupid decisions? What were we just talking about, sir? What were we just talking about? And you want to talk about other people needing to avoid stupid decisions? Insane.
That come in and make the game complete garbage. Like, I found a patch of Scythers, and I didn't aggravate them, didn't have any of their guard up. I got a back throw on one of the Pokeballs with a perfect shot, bounces right off. There was no indication that the Pokemon wasn't catchable. I just wasn't allowed to catch it because...
No, it's because you were too far. That happens if you're too far and you still hit them. It doesn't have the power of the throw anymore at that point. It makes sense.
You're not allowed to play how you want. Here's how the exploration works. It's mostly empty. Like, there's going to be maybe a patch of grass with a Pokemon in it, and then like an item next to it to pick up to kind of fill in the space. There's really nothing of note in most of the areas, and anything that might have something interesting like multiple Pokemon or a resource node or a rare item to pick up, it's completely scripted. Like, you're forced to play in to how the devs want you to approach that area instead of being creative and finding a way around it.
How is that scripted? What? You know, you can do that in normal gameplay.
I can't be strategic on how I approach those Scythers and win that encounter. Now I'm supposed to stumble in there like an idiot, have 3 Scythers attack
No, you can be strategic. You just did it wrong.
me, and then realize I'm under-leveled and get knocked out. Because, like, it's just a lot of things like that where it's like, man, this is just kind of BS. I can't come in and approach this Pokemon without it spotting me, and after it spots me, now the entire encounter is annoying and scuffed. So I guess instead of just trying to, like, throw the Pokeball to catch it, I'm forced into a battle, and then the battle is just going to be weird because the new battling system sucks and doesn't bring anything to the games. And even if I'm, like, able to just overpower this Pokemon and catch it without any issue, I'm still forced into that. So it just becomes regular Pokemon, but worse, somehow. The boss battles are actually dumber than I could have ever imagined.
Oh boy, we're getting into the boss battles. I'm excited for this one. You know, I haven't watched this video yet. This is my first time watching it.
Don't have to send out a Pokemon to fight to weaken the boss. Spam dodge. That's it. You just keep spamming until the Pokemon stands still, and then you light it up by throwing its favorite food at it. Because we're not allowed to have any action.
It's actually not as easy as that. He has this one clip of him spamming dodge and it working, but like, I promise you, if you spam dodge, you're gonna get hit because there's a lot of startup and cooldown to the dodge.
Or like, actually, like, Pokemon are allowed to attack each other, but we can't do...
Look, he just got hit. You can't spam dodge. Look, he just tried to spam it again and got hit. Is no one gonna point that out?
Anything interesting to weaken a Pokemon other than...
Look, it said send in a Pokemon to do battle. He didn't see that. He's saying that you can't use your Pokemon to do it. It's just dodge and throw the bombs. He obviously missed the prompt. I'm sorry, Verlisify, that this game did not hold your hand properly to tell you in big, bold cutscenes that you can now send out your Pokemon to battle. Like, I'm sorry that it's kind of subtle and that you have to figure that out because that's part of the puzzle for beating the bosses. I'm so sorry. So sorry that you somehow want to call this game handholdy but miss all the little subtleties there. I am so sorry. I'm sorry that you need the handholdiness and that it's not here. I am so sorry.
Give it food so it's happy, and that's the boss fight. But then at the same time, a big defense of the game is, well, Pokemon games have always been made for children, so you're wrong for trying to expect any maturity or any advanced gameplay out of a Pokemon game, even though somehow Mario Odyssey, more mature, more difficult than the future Pokemon Legends game.
Okay, yeah, Mario Odyssey was more difficult and more mature than previous Pokemon games, for sure. Absolutely, hands down, and it was higher quality. So, no argument there. And then also, he's again, now he's complaining that the game is easy again, but he keeps going back and forth between complaining that it's too hard and then too easy. Pick a side, dude. Pick a side. If you're gonna be a propagandist, okay, you know what? This is something propagandists do all the time. They do say things that contradict each other on purpose so that people can pick out one of those two things to defend their side of whatever argument it is that they're saying. Whatever argument it is. So if you want to say that this game is unfair, you can pick out these times when you say it's too hard, but then you want to say this game is actually just as easy, if not easier than past Pokemon games, you'll pick out another example. It's kind of crazy to me. Like, there's no acknowledgement for that fact that it has a good balance of difficulty and fun. There's no acknowledgement for that.
And Breath of the Wild, no one's like, well, Breath of the Wild was supposed to be made for children. Nah, the game wanted to be a good game, so it decided to be a good game.
Yeah, so did this.
Legends never wanted to be a good game from the start, and it clearly shows. Every aspect of gameplay is shallow and the bare minimum and provides nothing to the genre it's trying to replicate or just poke.
Has he played any of the boss battles beyond the first one? Like, I mean, like if he was actually seriously thinking these things, There's no way someone could play against the boss battle of the main campaign, or even the Arceus boss battle in the post game, which we all know is coming, so it's not really a spoiler. Like, it's very difficult, actually, and it's a lot of fun. Heck, even some of the nobles before that were really hard and difficult. I died to the final noble Pokemon, I think 4 times. It was fun and hard.
Pokemon in general. Like, oh man, we got an action RPG, where the only action RPG element is a roll dodge. And as I've been talking about the open area exploration with the Pokemon interactions,
He says the only action element is a roll dodge as he's throwing bombs at a boss in a boss fight.
it's not what you're looking for. Like, you can project all that you want Pokemon Legends to be, that it's open world, that it has cool exploration, that it has interesting Pokemon interactions, but then you're actually lying to yourself. And if you are still trying to fight that, then you just need to cope. And if you can't do that, there is no saving you.
We need to cope, guys. We need to cope when we say that we enjoy this game. The same guy who tried to defend Sword and Shield and say, like, people need to stop bashing it and just enjoy the game for what it is. Like, you can't do that here all of a sudden. And the same guy who said he trusts Game Freak with all his heart and mind and that he always believes in what they're doing. Now, when they change the formula, he changes his stance on that. Like, my goodness. It's so blatant how backwards he's being on purpose for this. It's crazy to me that people actually will sit here and think he's serious and agree with him and think that he has a point. Like, that's crazy to me.
The problem with social media and modern society is that people are completely unable to admit when they were wrong. And they will just...
You are the prime example of that one, sir. You are the prime example. I'll admit when I'm wrong, and I'll admit flaws in a game. I admitted the first hour and a half of this game has its flaws. And I'll admit the graphics have a little bit of flaws. And I'll admit a lot of other things too. But the point is, this is still a huge step up for the series in so many ways. Even graphical issues in this game, even the ones that it still has the best graphics out of any mainline Pokemon game. Like there's so many aspects to approach this game from and analyze it from, and you can't come away from that saying that it's any worse off than previous Pokemon games. It is, in fact, objectively better.
just keep doubling down and over-investing no matter how terrible their position has become. And that is the state of
Again, you're a prime example of that.
Pokemon Legends. You don't need to play a bad game to know it's a bad game. You don't need to...
You're the same dude who said, buy Sword and Shield and then make your opinions. When people were like, this is a bad game, I'm not going to buy it, you said, no, you can't judge it, you haven't played it. You got to go buy the game. And now you're going to say you don't need to play a bad game to know it's a bad game? Are you kidding?
Engage with something you know you won't enjoy to know you won't enjoy it.
Oh my god, how much longer do I have to go through this? This is torture. I'm at the 12-minute mark. This video is 17 minutes long. You guys are killing me. Let's go.
Pokemon Legends. And it should have been red flags from the start, because the way that Pokemon Legends was advertised is completely different to what the game is.
I'll agree with that. They didn't advertise it well enough.
And unless you actually pay attention, you're not going to see that. So it's just a dishonest game. It was so dishonestly marketed that should be red flags right there. And then when you get into it, it's like, oh, this...
What was dishonest about it? You said... So, let's go with the alternate universe where what you said about the game before it released was true. You said that playing the game actually verified all those things that you said bad about it. So in that regard, according to your case, this would be an accurate representation. The marketing would have been an accurate representation of the game. With what you were saying before, that's what that would mean. But now you're twisting the narrative once again in a contradictory way to say that it wasn't marketed honestly for what it actually is. Which is something I would agree with, because I think they didn't market it well enough. I think the game is actually way more fun than they marketed it to be. So, sir, Stop switching sides just for the sake of whatever argument you want to propose at any given time.
This is the same Pokemon game that we have had for the last couple of years and even decades. Like
No, it's not. That's why you hate it so much.
this is every 3D Pokemon game, but worse. And
I can't believe I'm hearing this. This is so funny.
if you're trying to pretend it's something else, you're objectively wrong. The Pokemon Sword and Shield DLC, that was an innovation. That was moving us forward.
How was that an innovation and this isn't? What? What? How was that moving us forward and this isn't? Like, you literally have action in this game. You have difficulty in this game. You can take your Pokemon out whenever you want to in this game. You have Pokemon interactivity in this game. You feel close to your Pokemon in this game. You feel close to the opposing Pokemon in this game. You have all these different experiences you can mold in all these different ways. And the game it's oh my god, it's so fun, and the story is better, and it's unintrusive. This is the innovation and the evolution of the series. This is not the Pokemon Sword and Shield DLC. Absolutely not. The one thing I will give the Sword and Shield DLC over this is the use of Pokemon in their habitats, like Emolga flying in the trees and Sharpedo making like those speed fins in the water and things like that. I was actually surprised not to see things like that in this. Or like the Avalugg and the Ice Cube in the water acting like they're just normal ice cubes, which didn't work in Sword and Shield because the draw distance was so bad, but could have worked here if they did something like that. They could have done that. I thought it would have been really cool since the draw distance is so much better in Pokemon Legends. But my goodness, this guy is so backwards. Let's go. Let's go. I've said that a million times. Now I'm repeating myself as much as Verlisify repeats himself. This is kind of crazy.
Let's Go, alternative gameplay styles, that was way better than anything in Pokemon Legends, and also the quality of life of those games beats out anything Pokemon Legends could have provided. And
quality of life in Let's Go? They removed so many features in that. What are you talking about quality of life improvements? The only quality of life improvement in that was being able to access your Pokemon storage at any time. And that was something I did appreciate, but for this style of game, that wouldn't work because this is a survival game. Like, it's an action RPG survivalist game. It wouldn't work here. But there's so many more quality of life and innovations here, like crafting from a bag and other things like that too, like taking out your Pokemon, using your Pokemon to do things in the overworld, the way the fights work, etc.
And that's my biggest complaint with Pokemon Legends. It doesn't need to exist. And I haven't even gotten into how, like, the lore doesn't make any sense. I guess, like, from the...
This is the most essential Pokemon game we've had since, gosh, probably, I want to say Black and White, or Heart Gold, Soul Silver, one of those two. Or maybe even, like, as much as I don't like X and Y needed to exist because it was the first 3D Pokemon mainline game, you know, like, this is definitely the most crucial Pokemon game since one of those. And that's a long time ago. That was like back in 2013 at the latest. So almost a decade ago.
The starting cutscene, you understand, like, oh, this just doesn't care. Why make a legend-based Pokemon game if you're going to shit on the existing history of Pokemon, which is already rich and good and enjoyable, and then just make things up in the laziest way possible? Almighty Sinnoh, all these story cutscenes getting in the way and just making...
The story in this game was so good by comparison to past Pokemon games. It's not even funny. And the lore that they continued to build upon in this game was so well done. I applauded them for it. Everything that happens at Spear Pillar, everything that happens with Almighty Sinnoh, everything is so good. The noble Pokemon, your character going to the past, the ancestors. It's so good.
You go, nah, that's not Pokemon. This is stupid. Okay, I guess I get to take 5 steps, catch Pokemon. That's another cutscene, alright. There was so much potential to have the best Pokemon game ever. It was practically free. You just upgrade the graphics of Pokemon Sword and Shield, you make that the Pokemon Brilliant Diamond Shining Pearl, the Grand Underground's awesome, Overworld Shiny Pokemon again because there was no reason for it to be removed in Pokemon Sword and Shield, and even Pokemon Brilliant Diamond Shining Pearl. Like, Brilliant Diamond Shining Pearl as is, in the Grand Underground, like, there's Overworld Pokemon.
Did he just admit that there were flaws with those games? That's actually kind of insane to me. But regardless, yes, to an extent, I could agree that if they had done this style of game in particular as the Gen 4 remakes, in the modern day, yeah, that would be a much better Pokemon game. But for Game Freak, this being their first outing in this type of genre, I think this works really well. And I could totally see them expanding upon this to bring it to the modern world next time. I hope they do that, because now they have the skeleton for what they can make from now on, you know? And they have quite a bit of assets already created to use as well. And the engine, this engine is so much better than Sword and Shield's engine. So much better. Sword and Shield couldn't even dream of this. This is insane.
Why not just show them shiny? Oh, that's right, because we need like 1 or 2 features to salvage Pokemon Legends from being absolute garbage. Like, yeah, I'll give props that Pokemon Legends has overworld shinies, but then that's just a knock on Game Freak, because it means that other games had features needlessly removed for no reason. So Pokemon Legends is a complete waste of potential that's a step backwards for Pokemon in every way possible. And that's before we get into the graphics. The graphics are terrible, the game stutters, your character animations are awkward.
I haven't seen the game stutter. Okay, I've seen it stutter maybe once or twice, and they were in boss battles with a bunch of effects happening. That's the only time. Only time I've seen it stutter.
The facial expressions are lifeless.
There are great facial expressions in this game. It's the first time I think we've had so many facial expressions, both from the player character, the NPCs, and the Pokemon.
Every interaction I have in the game just feels off. And
I disagree with that too. I think the characters are more interesting than ever.
It's just not good. I don't understand how a game can look and perform worse than Breath of the Wild 5 years after Breath of the Wild comes out. But here we are, with less...
How can you not be surprised? It's Game Freak, dude. How can you not be surprised? It's going to be a little worse than Breath of the Wild when it comes to controls and stuff and graphics. I think the game itself is more fun than Breath of the Wild, just personally. I just enjoy this. I enjoy having this Breath of the Wild-esque game with Pokemon included, you know? So, again, invalid.
Characters and less things happening on screen. I would have so much less disdain for this game if the Pokemon Company was just honest about it.
You want to talk about honesty? Remember when they lied in the Sword and Shield debacle? And you never acknowledged that? You defended them? And now you want to talk about them not being honest? What? And what's dishonest about that? What is dishonest about it? Well, maybe he'll tell us. Let's go.
If this was a spin-off game for $40,
You want to say that this should have been $40 but not BDSP? Or Sword and Shield, which had less content than the DS games? Are you kidding me? This has more content. It took me almost 100 hours to beat the post game. It took me around 60 to beat the main campaign. You know how long it took me to beat the past Pokemon games? Like 10 to 20 hours max. 10 to 20. And then in games like Sword and Shield, there's nothing to do after you beat it, because you can't even rebattle the NPCs or do anything else worthwhile. All you can do is the battle tower, which I find boring. That's it. And then you can get, you can spend $30 and get a DLC, which means that the game was $90 in total. And then the DLC also, like, once you beat it, what do? Like, you just run around the areas with your Pokemon. That's it. That's all I've done. And play Pokemon Camp. At least this game, you can do stuff with that. You can rebattle NPCs after. You can go rebattle them in Jubilee Village. You can go back out into these overworlds and everything respawns and you can fight them again. All the bosses, all the mini bosses. You can go refight all the nobles. Even the ladder bosses. The big bosses. God himself. Like, you can do everything again as much as you want. There's so much to this. There's so much customization and variation that you can do however you want to do it. Man.
Didn't have as many complaints, but like oh god, I didn't even talk about the Hisuian designs being awful. The new Pokemon designs are awful. Like
that is a subjective opinion. I'm not gonna say I actually personally like them, but that is a subjective opinion, and anyone is entitled to their opinion on this. If he actually feels this way, that's fine. That is totally fine. But again, he can't speak for everyone. Some people love certain Pokemon, some people hate certain Pokemon. That's all.
The franchise is called Pokemon. If the new creatures being added into the game are bad, that actually makes the game worse.
Yeah, that's true if you dislike the new designs. But, I mean, again, some people probably love the new designs, you know? I like a lot of them. I'd say there's a few that I found questionable too, sure. But that didn't ruin the experience for me. And yes, I definitely preferred the new Pokemon from Gen 7 and Gen 8 and the previous gens. But, like, there was nothing wrong with these new Pokemon whatsoever.
Because you can't really ignore it, and then that's just like those are just stuck in Pokemon forever. So I mean, if this
Not necessarily, because the Megas never made a return, and also you know, like Alolan forms and Galarian forms aren't necessarily back in every game either. So, and even the original forms for some of them, like Johtonia and Corsola wasn't in Sword and Shield until the DLC. So like, I mean, like it might not have been included at all. You know, there's a good chance that would have happened. Let's continue.
this was a spin-off game that cost less, then there wouldn't be the implications of main series. But like, every second spent in Pokemon Legends is a complete waste of time. There's no point of doing any
That would be a subjective opinion once again, and again, most of us disagree.
of it. Even with Pokemon home transfers and like future VGC competitive, like you're better off just kind of farming a shiny Pokemon in Pokemon Sword and Shield or making a level 100 competitive and just being like, hey, you've got spare Hisuian Pokemon because you decided to waste money in your life. I'll trade you this in Pokemon Home. And then you do it. Like there's nothing you can extract out of Pokemon Legends that is rewarding or worth the time you put into Pokemon Legends. And that's kind of true for all of Pokemon right now because the entire thing is a hackfest and a
Whoa, did he actually just admit again some flaws with previous games? That's kind of crazy again.
majority of the Pokemon community supports cheating, so a lot of it is a waste.
Never mind. No, he's talking about the community. Of course he is. Of course he is. He likes to spit this narrative out that the Pokemon community is divided and a crapshoot, and that like no one gets along and that no one has good opinions. When really, like, it's just because we're all on the same page now and he's not.
In that way, but even then, at least like the gameplay loop in Pokemon Sword and Shield, far more enjoyable, especially with the DLC. You run out, you do some dens, do some digging duo, do some cramomatic crafting, get a Pokemon level 100, competitive in 10 minutes, feels good. You can put some teams together faster than any other Pokemon game, battle some friends, go on the battle spot, maybe do some ranking, get rewarded for it. The rewards in Pokemon Sword and Shield are actually meaningful.
How?
Pokemon Legends, nothing matters. It looks and feels like a tech demo, it plays like a spin-off, and it should have just
The wild area in Sword and Shield looked and played like a tech demo.
never existed to begin
Actually,
with.
not even. Usually tech demos are try to impress you, and that one didn't even. So, I mean, sure, you can say this played like a tech demo. That means it's impressive, right? Thanks.
With all the effort the Pokemon Company could have thrown at the Sinnoh remakes should have just happened into one game to create the ultimate Pokemon experience, even delay it. I don't care. You know, we don't get Brilliant Diamond Shine Pearl in November. Pokemon, like...
Again, I would have agreed, although I doubt you would have agreed with the delay. I feel like you would have complained. Hands down would have complained.
People are like, oh, what if Pokemon Legends had more time? No, it was so flawed from the beginning. The very concept of Pokemon Legends could not be saved by any more amount of development time. But here's what Pokemon Company should have done. Make the ultimate Pokemon game, release it in summer 2022, everyone's happy. But instead, trash.
Okay, so that was Verlisify's review of Pokemon Legends Arceus, and you guys saw it for yourselves. You heard my thoughts on it. He's obviously, as usual, being a contrarian for the sake of being a contrarian, and there's nothing we can do about it other than stop watching his videos. That's really all there is to it. I hope you enjoyed this one, though. Thank you.